Welcome to our webinar, Unlocking 2025 Bookings, a deep dive into customer loyalty and strategic targeting. My name is Jessica Carey. I am the Vice President of Customer Operations at Sendine, and I'm so excited to be with you here today for our webinar. A special guest who's joining me today as well, and I will introduce her in just one moment. But first, I do want to go over a couple of housekeeping items for everyone on today's call. First of all, for today's call, all attendees are already muted, so there's no need to worry about muting yourself. But that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you during today's webinar. We do. So you'll notice that in your Zoom webinar screen, you have a Q&A area. Please, at any time during the webinar, if you have a reaction to something we're saying or you have a question, go ahead and find that box and type it in there. We will respond to as many questions as we can during today's webinar. And for those that we aren't able to get to, we will follow up within the next day or two with answers to everybody who is able to ask questions for us. In addition, a copy of today's recording is going to be emailed to everyone who registered for today's webinar. So no need to necessarily grab screenshots of the information we're going to share. Unless you would like to, you'll have your own resources to refer back to later on. And then, of course, we wanted to give you a heads up that we are going to get you engaged, especially at the beginning. We love to hear from you about what you're seeing, what's going on out in the group and event business market within your hotel properties. So we are going to ask you to engage with some polls. So get ready to share some information as well. All right. Well, without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our special guest for today's webinar, Natalie Rausch. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Jessica. So great to be here. Hello, everyone. I am very, very thrilled on today's topic. You're going to be able to take away a lot of really good insights. So I'm very excited to have you all here. Be sure to engage with us. We would love to hear from you.
That's awesome. And Natalie is one of our awesome sales intelligence, formerly known as Noland, experts here at Sendine. And so she is just a wealth of knowledge that we can pull on today, not just about the Noland platform itself, but also about just the group business in general, and especially meetings and events. Natalie spends most of her day talking to customers. And so it's always interesting to get some of the insights and hear what it is that she's shared. So excited to have you here. So I mentioned at the beginning, we were going to lead off with a couple of polls for today's webinar. We're going to go ahead and start that now. We want to begin by just learning a little bit more about how you go about building group business and meetings and events business within your individual properties. So I'm going to go ahead and launch our first poll today. And that should be popping up on your screens here in just a second. The question is, how often does your hotel use data to identify potential group booking opportunities? Our options we have here are daily, weekly, monthly, or rarely or never. No wrong answer necessarily, but we'll go ahead and give a couple minutes for everyone to log and answer here. It's always fascinating to see. All right, we'll give you about 5 more seconds. We've still got a couple of responses coming in. All right, I'm going to end that poll here. Perfect. And I'm going to share the results. There we go. So it looks like our majority of our responses were in the weekly category, that you are weekly using data to identify potential group booking opportunities. But it's closely followed up by some of you who are using daily data. That's so good to see, followed by monthly, and a few people who are still hanging out in the rarely or never space. Natalie, is it normal to see such a wide range of different ways people approach group booking opportunities?
I would say so. I think just based on all of the different customers I speak to daily, and all of their different roles, right? They have different set of responsibilities. I think for me, what I tend to hear more from customers that are in that, weekly, daily, or even that monthly portion is just that for them, it's just helpful to know what lays ahead, right? For them, it's all about understanding trends and being able to be just one step ahead of the curve. And that's why they leverage the information, regularly. It
That's a
also
great.
helps on the outreach portion, right? Like knowing information about accounts, about events, about planners just helps you be, more consultative and more informed. So I would say that's what I see in here.
Awesome. So I have a couple more polls here. The next one I'll launch now. And this question is, which of the following data points do you currently track or utilize to identify potential 2025 bookings? Do we have people who are using past booking history who's met at your property or maybe within your brand before that you have already access to within your system? Are you looking at customer preferences? Are you looking at market trends? Or are you looking at all of the above or none of the above? All right, we've got a lot of responses coming in here. Definitely see some trends that are popping. Natalie, I'm sure you'll be excited to see that. I'll go ahead and close our poll. So hopefully everyone had a chance to respond and share the results out. All right, so as we can see, there's a pretty even split here between those of us who are using past booking history to inform our potential 2025 bookings, as well as those who were using all of the above: past booking history, customer preferences, market trends as well.
So I'm going to be honest here. This was a bit of a tricky question, right? All of the above is the right answer if it were up to me and you, correct, right? But at the end of the day, it's really about knowing and researching your customers, right? Knowing who you're going to be targeting. And honestly, what I will say to anybody that may not be using data points at this point in time, don't panic. I feel like this is the perfect time to just take a step back, take a new approach, and determine, how do you want 225 to look like? And at the end of the day, just remember that knowledge is power, and just a little bit of prep goes really a long, long way. So you'll learn a lot of really good stuff today.
Awesome. Our last poll question we've got all queued up, and here we're going to transition to talking a little bit about how you feel going into 2025. So the question is, how confident are you in your hotel's ability to achieve its 2025 booking goals? 0 would be not at all confident, and 5 is I'm super confident. We're going to blow those goals out of the water. Who has what they need at this moment in time to be sure that they're going to meet those booking goals? All right. Well, pretty good split here as well. We'll give just a couple more seconds for anyone else who wants to join. All right, and we'll end the poll. And here are our results. So again, a pretty even split. Luckily, none of us are at that far end of the spectrum saying we don't have anything that we need. I love to see that that's the case. But we do have a lot of people who are kind of grouped here in the middle, where maybe we have most of what we need or some of what we need, but there's still some pieces missing. Natalie, is that kind of matching what you've been hearing from the Nolan customers as you've been working with them?
So because they all, at the end of the day, they all have their particular need times or seasonality. I mean, ideally, who doesn't want to be at 100% occupancy, but there is always room for more, correct? And so that's why we're here today.
I love that. So at this point, I always like to take a little break from our webinar topic and really dive in and share with you some of the trends that Noland is seeing across the group and event travel landscape. And so here we've got some of those trends that we're able to share with you today. These are all trends that are looking specifically at what was going on amongst the group and events business in Q3 of 2024. Well, we're really excited to say that we saw a 10.7% growth in the number of events year over year at the same hotels in 2024 as we saw in 2023, which is great news, right? The group, the event industry, it's still going strong. In addition to that, we saw the biggest year over year growth in secondary markets, markets such as Southern Michigan, the Florida Panhandle, Louisville, Kentucky, and even Kauai, who all were able to double the amount of events that they held in 2023 in 2024 during Q3, which is great news for those of you who might not be sitting in a top 25 market. But to be clear, among the top 25 markets, we still are seeing a good amount of growth. The largest year-over-year growth was in Phoenix. Congratulations to anyone from Phoenix. You had about 19.7% more events in 2024 during Q3 than you had in 2023. In addition to Phoenix, we saw Las Vegas, Dallas, Atlanta, and New York, who all had growth between 15 and 18%. So across the board, we're seeing a lot of strength in this market. Now, Natalie, I know that you talk to many hoteliers in your role, and looking at these stats, can you share some of the trends that have come up in the conversations you've been having that might lead to some of this growth? I know last year we did a similar webinar to this one, and you happened to mention bleisure. Is bleisure still something that's being talked about in the market?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Bleisure is definitely still a topic, especially when we look at school and like family vacation times. However, it's not as dominant as it was during the first years of the post-COVID travel boom. What we're seeing, a lot of corporate groups are getting back to the basics, but we still see some groups adding on that leisure component around major conferences and events, which I know you have a lot of experience with. So it's not really gone, but it's no longer the overwhelming trend it was a couple of years ago.
That makes sense. And that does apply to at least my personal experience. My husband travels a lot for work, and there for a few years, my son and I were going along on any events that bordered a weekend just to be able to get out of the house and to travel. But as we've seen school events really start to pick up and youth sports competitions, we haven't been able to travel as much. So we're not beleisuring in the Carey family quite as much as we were before either. So what other trends are beginning to emerge outside of just bleisure?
I'm glad you're asking. So I'd say sustainability is absolutely top of mind right now. More and more groups are really seeking sustainable travel and meeting programs. Think of things like low carbon footprints, reducing paper waste, no handouts, no name tags, using non-disposable catering goods, as well as choosing local vendors are all really on the rise. And remember, planners are really becoming much more conscious of environmental impact. So this is really something that hoteliers can tap into by promoting their sustainability efforts.
I love that. It's so important for the industry to continue to move in this more sustainable direction. We've even seen companies like here in the DC area, like Bridge Badge, that have begun to integrate digital functionality into events, adding value without the environmental costs. They do like a digital name badge for events that then also help you to connect with the different people at the events. Super fun to use. I was glad to get to meet them. We're certainly moving towards a more sustainable future. Now, are virtual and hybrid events still a significant part of the conversation, or have we seen those begin to taper off?
Yeah, so I'd say virtual and hybrid formats are still popular, and many meetings now assume a sort of hybrid option, especially with remote workers. But planners really need to think about this early because it's not always as easy as it seems. It really takes a lot of planning and resources to make sure that hybrid experience runs smoothly. So my advice is to always plan for hybrid, but also ask if it's really needed for that event, because we always need to remember it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Definitely sounds like that would be tricky for events friends who maybe have to scramble at the last minute to get a hybrid option set up. What are some of the other challenges that you're hearing from the sales teams?
Yeah, a few big factors I think to consider. First, of course, increased competition, right? Everyone's competing for the same business, so the pressure is really high there. And then, not to forget, economic uncertainty. Many customers are hesitant to spend, which leads to delayed decisions. And of course, the political landscape also impacts travel budgets and decision making. And of course, meeting planners' expectations are shifting. I think this is a really big one, right? They're more informed than ever, and have very specific needs and wants for their events.
I totally agree with you there, Natalie. Planners have become very savvy, especially in these post-COVID years, and that discovery process of going throughout the sale can be complex as their expectations are evolving. And that kind of leads us into a conversation naturally, I think, about customer loyalty. As we know, loyalty is one of the most important and powerful ways to drive business, and we saw that using past booking information is key to everyone's strategy, especially as we move into 2025. So, how can hotels build stronger, more loyal relationships with whether they are meeting planners or those time planners who just kind of fall into it within a company?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked. And of course, for anyone that knows me, this is one of my favorite topics. So there are a few strategy I always recommend, right? So first and foremost, personalized communication is key. If you know your client's needs and preference, make sure to show them that you remember and that you care. Whether it's a personalized follow-up or even remembering specific details from their past events or special dates important to the planner, all of that really just makes a huge difference. Another strategy that comes to mind is leveraging loyalty programs. Many hotels already have loyalty programs in place, but they can be even more effective when tailored to meet the specific needs of a group or corporate clients. And then, of course, cross-selling and upselling can also play a role here. It's a win-win situation. You help your client find additional services or benefits, and they get more value while your hotel increases its revenue. And then, of course, finally, and this comes close to my heart, is fostering a long-term relationship, right? Through excellent service and communication. Simply means that clients will come back time and time again, and that's how you build true loyalty. However, it's important to remember that loyalty is never guaranteed. Just because you have worked with a client for years doesn't mean they won't explore other options. Planners have more choices than ever before, and their needs can change quickly. If you become too comfortable, you risk losing business to competitors. That's why it's crucial to continue building loyalty with your existing clients by staying innovative, engaged, and focused on providing value. This way, your clients are more likely to choose you by booking directly for their next event. Loyalty isn't something you can take for granted. It's something you need to earn and foster.
I think that's a really interesting point, Natalie. And it seems like being able to have details about the past bookings are helpful when they took place in your hotel to continue to highlight why you're the best choice. But maybe having details on those past bookings are even more important for new players who are trying to ship that share to their own hotels. If they know what happened at the previous event, being able to show why their property is even better could be more important in building these loyalty relationships. But what do we do when this is a new account? Do you have any tips for us on where to start to gather that information?
Yeah, one of the most effective ways to learn about new accounts and identify high valued opportunities is through our Nolan platform. And remember, it's soon to be rebranded as Sendine Sales Intelligence. And what you can do with this is basically you can access a ton of data about potential accounts, including those historical booking patterns, trends, group sizes, function details, and meeting preferences. So hotels can basically then use this data to tailor their outreach, right? Ensuring that every one of those touch points with a potential client is as relevant and targeted as possible. Plus, one of my favorite features is you can set up alerts to stay ahead of opportunities and make sure you never miss a chance to win that next booking.
That does sound like it would be really helpful in building customer loyalty. Can you show us how it works?
Absolutely. Let me walk you through the details. So first things first, what we're going to show you is how you can leverage Nolan to just quickly look up an account and learn more about that particular account. For this example, we're going to look at Medtronic. Here, we're going to be able to learn about all of the individual past bookings to really understand the type of events they're having, the function details, the type of properties that they have met at in the past, the different markets and the geography where you can find them. And then, of course, my favorite section is our booking analysis section. This basically visualizes all of those trends already for you. We're going to narrow this down just the last 3 years. We can understand what those trends are in terms of month. When are they more likely to meet? And then here we can also understand their preference in terms of brands, venue. Let's say I'm a property in the Phoenix, Arizona area, and I want to understand what are the properties that tend to get a piece of that pie. Am I currently not engaged with this organization or company? What do I need to do to ensure that I'm going to stand out? Are they meeting at properties like my own? Are they meeting at properties that are within the similar location type, like my own property? Do they like to meet downtown in an urban location? Or potentially they prefer staying closer to the airport? What type of chain scale do they prefer meeting with? And if I am part of that chain scale, I know exactly what they're looking for. In addition to some of these details, of course, we can access also additional contact details as well, available through Knowland. The next step that we can do here, which I mentioned earlier, is one of my favorite, is when you want to follow an account. And for many of you that may already be familiar with Google Alerts, we have Knowland Alerts, which allow you to quickly set up an alert when you want to know the next time Medtronic shows up in the Phoenix, Arizona market. You're going to be informed, you're going to be notified via email, and it allows you to immediately take action. What if you want to identify the organization and companies that are meeting during a particular need time? Now let's pivot to another view. And let's take a look at how we can run a custom report in Knowland that allows us to target the best accounts for Q1 of 2025. We're going to focus on the last 3 years because we want to identify trends. We also want to know if there are some repeat business opportunity that either meet every year or every other year. We're going to focus in on Q1. In my case, I'm going to be looking for that ideal size between 1 and 600 attendees. And I'm going to prioritize multi-days. I want this organization in the past, over the last 3 years in Q1, have met in the Seattle area. So I'm going to search for Seattle. I also want to make sure that since I'm an upper upscale chain, they are or have met with those type of properties in the past. I can make all of those specifications in here. And then last but not least, I want to focus on corporate business. We're going to take a look at the list of accounts that I can now leverage to target new business or existing customer that may also populate on this list that do tend to meet in Q1. Let's take a look at Nestle as an example. I can quickly get a snapshot of what those events were that happened in Q1. I immediately see something that jumps out at me, a 2023 summit, followed by a 2024 summit. This would be a great opportunity to determine where they're going to be hosting their 225 or 226 summit. They tend to choose different type of brands and properties, so they might always be looking for a new experience. Leveraging all of the insight that you can gain through their past booking history is really going to help you stand out. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of an insight here on how, Jessica, we can target new business, identify new opportunities, and really grow that pipeline for 225.
This is really helpful, Natalie. It does look like it would make it so much easier for sales teams to identify the right prospects. Now, once we've got a target account, maybe it's at that Nestle summit you were just talking about, what are some best practices for reaching out to target accounts?
So always start with a call. That will always be my first recommendation, right? If you're unsure, if you're speaking to the right person, simply ask if they can help connect you to the right contact for future travel, meetings, or events. The biggest thing is don't be afraid to ask. This approach really opens the door for further engagement and shows initiative. And then be prepared for a live connection. We've grown so accustomed to fewer people answering the phone. But when they do, you need to be ready. Know your value proposition inside and out. What will you say if they pick up? Be clear, concise, and ready to deliver your message confidently. And then, of course, personalize your call. Before making contact, take a moment to learn something about the person, their organization, or their past programs and events. This shows that you've done your homework and makes your outreach feel more relevant. Don't forget to build rapport before selling. Avoid jumping straight into that sales pitch mode. Start by building a genuine connection, show interest in their business, and listen carefully to their needs. People will be way more likely to open up and involve themselves in a conversation with you when they feel you understand them. And here is a little tip if you haven't used that yet. Use the double dial. If someone doesn't pick up, immediately call back. The second time the phone rings, it will spark curiosity. They'll think, this must be important. They're calling back. This simple tactic can increase the chances of getting through.
That is such good advice, Natalie. And I know that I definitely fall into that category of picking up on the double dial for sure. And so I wouldn't be surprised that those rates are so high. Now, I want to save some time here because we're coming close to the end of our presentation for some Q&A from our participants. We've had a lot of good engagement today. And so please do, if you have questions at this time, submit them in the Q&A box, and we'll be sure to ask Natalie those questions as well and get through as many as we can in the time that we have. So, Natalie, first question, how many outreaches does it take on average for someone to get a response from a meeting planner?
I love this question, and after I answer it, I would love to have everyone's reaction in the comment box. To see if that is news to anyone, but it basically takes between 6 to 7 touches to actually be able to connect to a busy decision maker. And honestly, there is kind of like a rule of thumb of these 6 touch points to always mix and match them between email, voicemail, and phone calls, and sometimes even just calling, double dialing, and not leaving a voicemail. So that I would say is the standard that we have found to be quite meaningful and impactful, that if you at least do 6 touch points, then if there is an interest from that contact, you are going to be able to connect with someone.
That's really helpful as a reminder, because I know so often we worry about spamming people with too many outreaches, but the reminder that it can take 6 or 7 touch points to be able to finally reach someone, I think is good in calming some of our nerves. Now, as we said, we're worried about spamming. So another question said, do you have any advice on how to make sure that outreach isn't too spammy or is more likely to be responded to by those who are receiving it?
My best advice, and I say this to customer all the time, is keep it mobile friendly. Make sure your emails are easily read on a smartphone. Most people nowadays do check their emails on a mobile device. So you want to be sure that you are concise, right? That your email is well formatted, and um, avoid multiple attachments. You have plenty of time to share all of that material after the fact. Remember, this is about creating a connection and building trust. And if they really want to know more about your hotel, they can go up and look online and find out more. The initial messaging, it needs to be about building a lasting connection. That is my biggest advice.
I love that. That's such good advice for sure. I know back when I was a meeting planner before I came to Nolan, I had a hotel salesperson who reached out to congratulate me on a successful training event that I had held 2 weeks prior, and to say, that they thought it was really interesting that I had chosen the hotel and space that I did, and did I have enough room? What feedback was there, because they knew they had lost the RFP that year. And I was like, how kind is this that they're building this connection? They want that feedback. And you know what? Surely the next year I booked with them instead of the other property I'd been
You
at.
sure
So
did.
it really does work. Um, Great. We did have one question that came through as well. I did want to repeat it. A couple of you have asked, what will the new name of Noland be now that Noland has been acquired by Sendine?
Yes. So the new name will be Sendine Sales Intelligence.
Great.
But what I can also say, in addition to that, because I always like to, address that question as we have gotten it from many different customers when they're asking about what's new and what's changing, is that everything you already love and know about Noland is still there, right? Your team, your support, the Nolan platform, as it is right now, is there, and all we can do is grow and become better. So no worries.
That's awesome. All right. Think we have time for probably one or two more questions. Our next question is, some of our attendees today are already Nolan subscribers, and they're wondering, if they only had 5 minutes a day to be able to use Nolan, what would you recommend they do during that time to get some quick insights or quick prospects?
Yeah, so I will say check out the new to market widget. So basically on your Nolan dashboard, you have a new to market widget. This is really phenomenal to be just able to quickly determine, hey, what are some of those accounts that are new to meeting in my area, right? Like in my case, I could say if I am in Washington, D.C., in the downtown area, and I want to further understand what type of organization and company have met over the last 7 days. Here, immediately, boom, I have my list of accounts. I can dig into them, right? Apply some of those best practices that we just talked about, what to look for, determine what their preferences are, and reach out, introduce yourself, right? And kind of prep and lay that groundwork for future business that they might bring your way.
Oh, that's such a good tip. I love that. Um, and I think for our final question here, the question was really about like top accounts that are driving business into the market. If I want to get a quick view on just who should be the hit list to really shift the most important share, is there a quick view with a Nolan that can show me that?
Yes, there is. So this has been a customer favorite as well. What we're able to do is actually through a feature called Market Snapshot, we are able to actually quickly understand for a particular time frame and for a particular market. In this case, is Washington, D.C., and we are looking at 24 year to date. Boom, we know exactly what are those top 10 industries that drove business into the market. And we can immediately either jump into one of those sectors and really create, a target account list right from there. and just start our research, our qualification, and then of course our engagement with some of those new opportunities.
That's such a fantastic lead in as well, to a special offer that we'd like to offer to all of you who were able to attend today as well. We've covered a lot from building loyalty and targeting high value accounts to tools and best practices for securing 2025 bookings. But Natalie, do you have any specific thoughts as we wrap up, or want to talk a little bit about what's available here on the screen?
Yeah, sure. So of course we want to thank you for being here with us today, and I definitely encourage you to apply anything that might have sounded newer to you and strategy you've heard about today in your planning for 225 and beyond. And we would love to support you and assist you in your efforts. And as a thank you, we would like to give you a free market snapshot. Of course, if you are already a customer today, you already have access to some of these features and views. But of course, if you have any other follow-up questions, you're always welcome to contact us via clientcare@nolan.com.
That's awesome. Thank you, Natalie. And I know some of you who joined us today may have been from smaller properties that don't have as much meeting space. Today, we really focused on the capabilities inside of the Nolan Classic product. But as a reminder, we did launch our Nolan Select product that is really meant for those of you who have about 3,000 square feet of meeting space or less, that gives you excellent view into the accounts in your area that are right-sized for your property. So definitely reach out. And if the market snapshot isn't the right fit for you, someone on the team would be more than happy to walk you through what Nolan Select has to offer as well. So thank you so much for your time here, Natalie. I know you've got a busy afternoon of helping to support other Nolan customers, so we'll let you get back to it.
Thank you so much.
For all of you who joined today, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Please don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything we can do to help you as you prepare your 2025 strategy. My name's Jessica Carey. I'm the Vice President of Customer Operations at Cendyn, supporting the Nolan product. We wish you all happy selling. Bye-bye.